This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. It's September 1st, and on this day in 2007, it was the greatest upset in college football history. Appalachian State was a good football team. Here on the opening weekend of the 2007 season, the Mountaineers were coming off of a 14-1 year, back-to-back FCS national championships, and they were preseason number 1 in FCS football. The Michigan Wolverines had been 11-2 the year before, with those two losses coming in their last two games against rival Ohio State and a loss to Southern Cal in the Rose Bowl. Hopes were high for Lloyd Carr's team for 2007, and they were 5th in preseason polls. There are obvious differences between an FBS team and an FCS team. FBS teams have 85 scholarships to hand out compared to the FCS level of 63. There are obvious money differences and revenue sharing differences. FBS can typically recruit higher grade talent, but suffice it to say that the deck is always stacked in favor of an FBS program, no matter the history. Well, this was the first time that Michigan had ever played a lower division FCS team, and the scheduling of this game happened a little later than usual. Typically, these contracts are drawn up several years in advance, but in this case, both Michigan and Appalachian State had the same open date, and the deal was not finalized until the end of February of 2007, with Michigan agreeing to pay the Mountaineers $400,000 to come to the Big House, and what they anticipated would be a fairly easy win for one of college football's Goliaths. Vegas sportsbooks did not even put an official line on this game, thinking there was really no point. The game started pretty much as scripted. An easy Michigan drive and touchdown in the first 3 minutes seemed to validate folks' preconceived notion, but the Mountaineers had a pressure-tested group of guys led by sophomore quarterback Armani Edwards. It was only a matter of minutes before Appalachian answered with a score of their own, with Edwards hitting Mountaineers speedster Dexter Jackson for a 68-yard score. Here's David Jackson and Steve Brown on the call that day for the Appalachian Sports Network.
3rd down and 4. Armani to pass again. Goes right side and pass complete into open field. Now Dexter Jackson sprinting free. He's going to take this one all the way for the touchdown.
To the house in the Big House.
And the Big House goes quiet as the Mountaineers hook up on a big touchdown strike to Dexter Jackson.
As much as that surprised Michigan fans, it was not a surprise at all to the Appalachian State contingent. The Mountaineers staff knew that they were going to give up size to Michigan, but they also knew that they had speed at the skill positions that they could exploit. Jackson was one of those speedy weapons. So now it's 7-7. The Wolverines were like, okay, you had your fun, hope you enjoyed it, we'll take control of this now, and they drove down the field with a 10-play drive to make it 14-7. Michigan could hardly imagine what was about to hit them, though. Appalachian State scored 21 unanswered points to take a 28-14 lead, capped by this play.
Can't believe what they're seeing. 21-14, Appalachian leads Michigan. 2:23 to play until halftime. Mountaineers with 3rd and goal at the Michigan 6. 5 wide for Armani in the shotgun. Gets the snap from Irvin, looking for some help. Now steps up out of the pocket. Wow! For the touchdown! Touchdown, Armani Edwards on the QB draw from 6 yards out. The Mountaineers have opened up a 2-possession lead over the Maize and Blue.
Michigan was able to carve into that lead a little with a late field goal to make it 28-17 App State at half. At this point, college football fans were hearing about what was going on in Ann Arbor, but few could actually see the game live, as it was the inaugural broadcast of the new Big Ten network, not available on many cable systems just yet. The Mountaineers knew an 11-point halftime lead was not anything to be celebrated, and sure enough, Michigan roared back. They scored with 34 seconds left in the third quarter and elected to go for a 2-point conversion to try to make it a 3-point game, but they didn't get it. So instead, it's a 5-point game, 31-26 Appalachian. Michigan was able to grab the lead back with 4.5 minutes to play in the game. They went for another 2-point conversion, this time to try to make it a 3-point lead. But again, they were stopped. If they had simply kicked the extra points on both of those scores, they would have led at this point 34-31. Instead, the score was 32-31, and those 2 points not on the scoreboard would prove fatal. But hindsight 2020, right? Those final 4.5 minutes were chaotic, though, with a Mountaineer turnover, their third of the day. Now, you probably remember the final play of this game being a blocked field goal, but there was actually another one. With 1:47 to play in this game, Michigan lined up for a 43-yard try that would have given them a 4-point lead, but that kick was blocked by Brian Quick. So now, the Mountaineers trailed by 1, they had no timeouts, and they needed to get points on the board. They marched down the field, and with 26 seconds remaining, Julian Roush kicked the go-ahead field goal to make it a 34-32 game. And that set up the dramatic finish. After a 46-yard pass play from Chad Henne to Mario Manningham, Michigan was in position for a game-winning field goal attempt. Instead, this happened.
37-yard field goal, this is it. This is it right here. Gensel ready. The snap's good. The whole
block!
The kick is good.
Oh!
The Mountaineers are going to try to take it
Gensel!
to the big house. 30, 20, 15, 10. The Mountaineers have just beaten the Michigan Wolverines. The Mountaineers of Appalachian State have just beaten the Michigan Wolverines in the big house. Oh my!
Unbelievable!
It is Appalachian State, nation. We just beat the Wolverines at the big house. Oh my goodness!
A stunned crowd of 109,000 at the Big House went silent as they let the greatest upset in college football history sink in. The reaction around the country, and especially rival Big Ten stadiums, several of which were playing FCS teams on this day, was jubilant. In Columbus, Ohio State fans stuck around after their game with Youngstown State to watch the final seconds play out on the Jumbotron. In Happy Valley, a score update after the Julian Roush field goal sent many into a frenzy, and players and fans alike huddled around any screen that they could find. And in East Lansing, the loudest roar that went up on that day was when the Spartans watched the blocked field goal to seal the game for Appalachian State. The win caused a lot of media members to lobby the NCAA to be able to vote for Appalachian for the top 25 poll. At that point, there was a rule in place that prevented FCS teams from receiving votes, but that was changed, and Appalachian became the first lower division team to ever receive votes for the top 25. Appalachian State went on to win their third consecutive national championship in December, becoming the first Division I team to win 3 national championships in a row. Michigan lost the following week to Oregon, but they corrected course to become bowl eligible and beat Florida in the Capital One Bowl to close out their season. Head coach Lloyd Carr officially retired after that game. Before the NCAA rebranded the second tier of Division I football to FCS, it was known as Division I AA. Well, one of the greatest players to ever play at a 1AA school was Jerry Rice at Mississippi Valley State. And on this day in 1984, he had one of his best days as a collegiate. This was the season opener for the Delta Devils, and they were on the road at Kentucky State. Rice reeled in 17 Willie Totten passes for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns in an 86-0 rout of the Thoroughbreds. The 294 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns both set Mississippi Valley State records that are still in the record book. His 17 catches fell well shy of his own record, though. He reeled in 24 passes in a game the previous year that is still the 1AA. Hang on a second. Make that the FCS record still. It was just the start of a great year for Jerry Rice. He finished the 1984 season with 103 catches for 1,682 yards and an FCS record of 27 touchdowns that still stands today. On this day in 1996, Tiger Woods earned his first check as a professional golfer. Of course, by that point, he was already a multi-millionaire, signing endorsement deals with Nike and Titleist right after he turned pro, right after he won his third straight U.S. amateur title. but he made his professional debut at the Greater Milwaukee Open, and after shooting a final round 68 on this day, he finished 12 shots behind Lauren Roberts and Jerry Kelly. Roberts won on the first playoff hole, by the way. Tiger closed out his first 4 days on the PGA Tour tied for 60th, and he received a check for $2,544. On this day in 1985, Bill Elliott grabbed a much larger payout than that, becoming Million Dollar Bill after he won the inaugural Winston Million. Now, at this point in NASCAR history, there were 4 races on the schedule that drivers and fans considered to be the crown jewels of the sport. Of course, there was the Daytona 500, the Winston 500 at Talladega, the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, and the Southern 500 at Darlington. Now, the Winston 500 has been rebranded over the years, but it is the first of the 2 races at Talladega Superspeedway. Well, in '85, the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, the main sponsor for NASCAR at the time, decided to make those 4 races a little more special by offering a $1 million prize to the driver who could win 3 of those 4. Bill Elliott had a dominant race car in 1984, so much so that drivers in the garage were complaining about an unfair advantage. Darrell Waltrip appealed to the NASCAR officials when they were at Talladega to slow Elliott's number 9 course machine down a little. Now, they did take some action on all the Fords, raising them a ½ inch and then lowering the General Motors cars by a ½ inch to try to even some things out. And yet, that didn't do anything to slow Awesome Bill from Dawsonville down one bit. He took the pole and won the Daytona 500. He sat on the pole again and won the Winston 500. So his first crack at the million was at the Coca-Cola 600, where, once again, he was the pole sitter, but engine problems caused him to finish well back in the pack in Charlotte. So on this day, he had one last shot at the $1 million prize, and once again, he started the race from up front. He led for the first 15 laps, but a young and hungry Dale Earnhardt was eating up his back bumpers. So, Elliott decided to let him by a little bit rather than fight him so early on in the race. Elliott benefited from attrition in this race as well. Harry Gant also had a strong race car and led a bunch of laps in the middle part of this one, but his engine gave up the ghost with about 60 laps to go. And then Earnhardt, who looked strong all day, was running second just in front of Elliott and chasing down then race leader Cale Yarborough until he ran into issues.
And we've got a spin in turn number 2. It's Earnhardt, and right in front of Elliott, and Elliott misses him. Boy, that was close. Bill Elliott almost saw the $1 million go away on the backstretch.
That led to a bunched-up restart with 43 laps to go and a battle for the lead between Yarborough and Elliott. And just after the restart, Cale's car threw a smokescreen.
500, Yarborough trying to play the rabbit, Bill Elliott playing the hound. He's got $1 million up for grabs, and one guy from nearby Sardis, and oh no, an engine, it looks like it's gone away on Cale Yarborough. And look at Elliott go down on the apron trying to get around. Bill Elliott with some very anxious moments. Fortunately for him, the entire field behind him senses the situation and let him go. Bill Elliott once again averts
disaster averted for the second time. Elliott's whole day and the $1 million nearly went up in smoke twice, but he kept the race car on the track and in one piece, and he took the lead back, and with most of the contenders out or wounded, he drove to the checkered flag.
Bill Elliott is racing into the record books. Bill Elliott is going toward immortality. Bill Elliott gets the checkered flag. Bill Elliott has won an additional $1 million in 1985.
And so with this being the first year the Winston Million was offered and the prize collected so quickly, it was thought maybe this would be a routine thing. And yet, it wasn't. Several drivers came close, winning 2 of the 4 with close calls in one of the others, but it wasn't until Jeff Gordon won 3 of the 4 in 1997 that the $1 million check was cashed once again. On this day in 1989, Baseball Commissioner Bart Giamatti died of a heart attack at his Martha's Vineyard home. Just 8 days prior, Giamatti had handed down a lifetime ban to Pete Rose for gambling on baseball. Now, Giamatti had only been the commissioner for 5 months. He was sworn in on April 1st, immediately thrust into working on the Rose situation, and finally coming to an agreement on August 24th. Giamatti, who had been the youngest president at Yale University, took over as the National League president in 1986 before becoming commissioner in '89. And he had been a longtime baseball fan, and he felt it was his duty to preserve the integrity of the game with the banishment of the greatest hitter to ever play it. Despite being a heavy smoker for many years, many friends and family members believed the stress of dealing with the Rose situation was what ultimately led to his untimely death on this day at the age of 51. On this day in 1964, Masanori Murakami made his major league debut and in doing so became the first Japanese player to play in the major leagues. His Japanese team, the Nankai Hawks, sent him and 2 other players to the States in the spring of '64 as a sort of exchange program. The 3 played in the San Francisco Giants farm system for a couple of weeks, and they were supposed to return in June, but they never got their call back from the Hawks, so they stuck around. Murakami was called up to the big club at the end of August, and on this day, the Giants were in New York playing the Mets. In the 8th inning, Murakami came out of the bullpen and he faced 4 hitters. He struck out 2, allowed a hit, but did not give up any runs. He picked up his first career win at the end of the month, coming on in relief in an extra inning game against Houston. The Hawks wanted him to come back to Japan after the '64 season, but the Giants refused. They liked the kid, and they wanted to retain his services. The commissioner of Japanese baseball was brought in to arbitrate the situation, and he ruled that Murakami could stay in the U.S. and play 1 more year, but had to return to Japan after that. So in '65, he made appearances in 45 games, finishing with a 4-1 record, an ERA of 3.75, and 8 saves. He did return to Japan after that and played another 16 years before retiring in 1982. And time now for today's fun fact, and this one kind of toes the line of sports, so I can't really call it a non-sports fun fact. But if you are not familiar with Park Run, then you are missing out. Now, there are events here in the U.S., but in Europe it is huge. The 2 times I've traveled to the UK, I've done the Saturday Park Run, and it is a blast. So anyway, just this year, 97-year-old Grace Chambers became Europe's oldest park runner to reach the 250 Park Run milestone. She completed her 5K run at a park in South Belfast, Ireland, and she did it just 4 weeks removed from heart surgery. You go, Grace. Keep on running. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.